Okay, I wasn't expecting anything, but we got a New Balance package on the porch, just sitting there waiting to be opened, so we gotta go check out what it is. Hey, they addressed it to Sup Well Running. Let's go, baby. Not even gonna make it inside today. Boom. Man, that is a good looking shoe. Man, the one thing I'm noticing is the foam in here feels a lot firmer than I expected. This midsole does feel firmer than I expected because I know with this FuelCell in the past generation, in the SC Trainer V2 and in the Rebel, it was a little bit softer, but this is 100% PEBA and it does have that classic PEBA look. We'll have to see how this rides. And look at that. Nice rubber outsole. This looks like it's going to be much more durable than that Hoka. That was the one downside with the Hoka that I've been loving is they didn't extend the rubber out on the back. But look, in the New Balance they did, which is exactly what we need here. Also very stiff plate as is standard for these carbon plated guys here. Colorway looks amazing. This yellow at the top really pops, and when you look down at your foot, it's just going to be a nice highlighter yellow colorway. Then you got these oranges peeking through. Man, this thing is popping off. Now with the upper here, they're calling it Phantom Fit. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it feels like a light engineered mesh. I don't know, I wouldn't compare it to the Vaporfly or Alphafly because both of those have a little bit more of the larger holes in it. This is pretty different than anything I've seen recently. It actually might be similar to what we see on the Adidas Takumi Sen and the Adidas shoes, where it's a little bit of a scratchier, not stretchy, well-structured upper that's still super thin. And we'll have to see how it fits. They did send it to me a half size too small, so I'll be able to fit my feet in here, but it might not be optimal. And in terms of the specs on this guy, they have the heel listed at 39 and the forefoot at 35 for a 4mm drop, and it definitely looks like that. You can see that the foam is pretty tall all the way up to the front here. We've got a nice rocker out there. We'll see how it feels on foot. I have a feeling it's going to feel a little bit more like a normal running shoe than some of the other shoes that we see. Like that Hoka felt super weird putting it on. And then they have it coming in at 8.1 ounces, which is a little bit heavier than the Vaporfly, but lighter than that Hoka and some of those other shoes. I'll have to get the scale out and we can test it. And then they have the upper material listed as engineered mesh. And of course, we got that full carbon plate here with this energy arc. And this is one of the first brands to do this, but this is going to be a rock catcher 5000. I can tell you that. So let's go get the scale and we can do a little bit of a weight test. Left shoe, 246. Right shoe, 246. I had a feeling New Balance was going to be good. I almost said that before I filmed. Exactly on the nose. And these are a size 10. Even in the size 10, they're heavier than the Vaporflies though. And the Alphaflies. And the Pro 3, but lighter than the Hokas. The foam just feels more durable for some reason than other foams. Maybe because it's a little firmer. I don't think it's going to feel firm underfoot, but it just feels more like a training foam that will hold up over the long term versus even if you look at this Hoka here, this thing is just much softer to the touch and it just feels like it's not going to be as durable. So we will see. Maybe this guy will get a lot of those training miles during the cycle. You match my water bottle exactly. Alright, enough messing around. We gotta go. It is 4:52, so we are battling against the sunlight here, but we're gonna make it work. Alright guys, time for the first run in these New Balance SC Elite V4s. So the main thing that I want to look for today is how do these compare to, of course, the Vaporfly, but primarily the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. Because as you guys know, I've recommended that a ton to newer runners, as a first carbon fiber plated marathon racer, and as a more forgiving option that's still going to help you go fast. And so the last version of the SC Elite, the SC Elite V3, was a little too soft. It wasn't super aggressive, and the Pro 3 just has a better overall feel from Saucony that's a little bit faster, while also not completely destroying your legs and forcing you to run with a weird form like something like a Vaporfly. So this seems like it's going to be an intermediary option between going super aggressive like what we see with that Hoka, the Hoka Cielo X, which I've been enjoying, and the Alpha Fly. This is kind of in the middle between what the last version was and some of the most aggressive shoes on the market. So I'm excited to see how it performs. I think for the run itself, I'm planning to do 10 miles. We'll take 8 to 10 miles. We'll see how we feel. We'll take the first 6 miles at around I don't know. We'll see how I feel, but steady-ish to just relaxed aerobic running zone, and then pick it up the last 4 miles down to marathon pace. And then in terms of the fit, let's see. I mean, again, these are nice. The Hokas were a lot more aggressive. Just feeling these on foot feels a lot more like a regular sneaker. And it's also a little bit of a wider base than the Vaporfly. I actually had the Vaporflies on last night. And the weird thing about the Vaporfly is the heel area back here and the midfoot is super skinny. So it feels like you're wearing a stiletto or something in the back here, or what I imagine that would feel like. Whereas these feel like a normal shoe. It almost feels like I'm wearing my New Balance 1080s right now. Feels very stable walking. So I'm assuming this is going to be a more stable run as well. And then toe box, decently roomy in terms of the width. These are a 10. I'm usually a 10.5. So these are a half size small, and they're a little short for me. My toes right up at the end. A little short for how I'd prefer, but it'll be fine for running in them and racing and fast running. So I think if I were you, I would order these true to size. And then one of the areas where we typically see problems for runners with medium to wide feet is on this edge of the toe box here in the Sauconys. I've had some issues here, and I'm not bulging out right here. My pinky toe is a little bit. It's probably because it's a 10, but I'll let you know how it does in terms of rubbing out there on the run. But overall fit right now, very comfortable. I'm impressed. And you can hear that rubber. Thank you, New Balance, for putting good rubber on these. Yeah, these feel very flat. They don't feel super rockered. It almost feels like a more robust version of the Rebel on foot. That's how I describe it. And I haven't tried the Rebel V4 yet, but in terms of how that Rebel V3 felt, it's a very traditional feeling running shoe, and these have that 4mm drop, so it's not going to feel as aggressive as a 10mm drop, or even that Hoka Cielo X, which is a 7mm drop with that super angled up geometry up in the front. So this feels pretty good, and I think for the type of run I'm about to do right now, this is going to be a really good test to see how does it feel at around that marathon pace, because even if it's not the fastest, most aggressive option out there, it's still maybe a good training option, or if you're going to be in that 3 hour to 4 hour marathon range, a good race day option. So that's likely where I'm going to be doing the bulk of my mileage today, is in that 3 to 4 hour marathon pace zone, and then for the last 3 to 4 miles, hopefully bring it down to 240, 250 marathon pace zone. All right, guys, enough yapping. It's 5:01. We are losing the battle against the sun, but I'm not a rapper. Let's go run.
Off it on the track.
Just doing a little warm up here, and they feel a lot less bouncy than those Hokas that we've been running in. And then the foam doesn't feel like it's compressing as much as the ZoomX foam. So we'll have to see. I think these are probably going to respond a little bit better to faster paces. And just initially here, they seem a little bit on the firmer side, especially compared to ZoomX, and maybe even a little bit firmer than that Saucony Power Run PB. But let's get this real run in, and then we'll report back. It's always the right shoe for some reason.
Off it on the track.
Alright guys, just finished 10.2 miles at a 7:10 pace. Average pace doesn't really matter. But we tried to fight the sun and we lost. So word of advice, if you're gonna try to fight, matter of fact, don't try to fight the sun. Sound like there's an old saying in Texas. There's an old saying in Tennessee. It's in Texas. I know it's probably in Tennessee. Fool me once. Can't fool me again. Whoa. We are boxed up, baby. Let's go. What do we have here? Uh-oh. We gotta censor this one. You guys aren't ready for what we got in this one. This is censored for sure. Alright guys, let me get these off real quick, but initial thoughts, these are very stable. Like I thought, stable and firm. They went all the way in the other direction from the V3 because the feedback from the V3 was that they were too soft. These are not too soft. Alright, let me get out of these real quick and see what's going on inside. We got mother-in-law here. Shout out to Jill helping out with the kids, and then we'll do a little breakdown analysis at some point. By the way guys, this is what a lacing system should look like on a racer. Hoka, take note, please. Look at these laces. These are perfect race laces. Just simple, light, nothing too fancy going on. That's perfect for racing. Oh, got some nice wear on that rubber already. Alright guys, it's dark out here. We tried to fight the sun and we lost, but it doesn't matter. We're gonna bring the light to the streets and give you the wrap up straight in the dark. I got the little floodlight out here. So let's get to it. First thing, this shoe did not wow me, especially since I was running in the Hoka Cielo X1. The past 2 days I did workouts in that shoe. Then putting this thing on, it is a completely different experience from that, all the way on the other end of the spectrum. So it was really interesting frame to come from that, which is highly rockered, super bouncy, a little bit of a softer layer of foam on the top there. I believe it's a dual density midsole. We didn't get into that too much in the previous videos with the shoe. I'll talk about that a little bit more when I do the long run video and the full review of that shoe. But this thing is much firmer and a much more natural ride. Now I went in there and I was chatting with Charlie for a little bit and she asked me how I like the shoe, and I told her they went in a completely different direction than V3 with this thing. From everything I know about V3, it's a much more accommodating, forgiving, a comfortable fit. Now this is not uncomfortable by any means, but it is not a soft shoe, and I think they really are trying to make a statement. That's what Charlie said. Are they trying to make a statement with the shoe? I think they are trying to make a statement with the shoe that they are not making any compromises and they want to go for speed here. Now, that being said, this shoe did not feel great at the beginning when I was going slower, jogging style paces. Actually, I did an audible. I didn't do the exact workout structure that I said I was going to do because I didn't want to be running the 4 progression marathon pace miles in the dark like this. I did 2 warm-up and then I did the 4 working miles and then I did a cool down to 10. So first 2 miles, the shoe did not feel great to me immediately with my mechanics. I was struggling a little bit with how to use it. It felt a little bit firm. Again, especially coming yesterday from that Hoka Cielo, much different profile here. But once I got into those working miles, and especially as I progressed it, I think I started at around a 6:30 on the first working mile and then ended at a 5:45, 5:50. And at the beginning, it felt okay in that marathon zone, that mid 6 mile zone. But as I dropped my pace, it just kept feeling better and better. So this is a shoe that the faster you go, the more you put into it, the more you're gonna get out of it. And so it's not a shoe that feels naturally bouncy and fast like that Cielo does, or even a shoe like the Adidas Takumi Sen, or a shoe like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2, which people love. This is a shoe much more like the Adidas Audi Zero SL, or one of these non-plated lower stack shoes that I talk about so much, where you gotta do a little bit of work with your feet to get something out of it. The other thing that's noticeable about it is the 4mm drop platform. And so this is not the most aggressive rocker, and paired with that 4mm drop, it feels really flat. And so as you're running along, it feels best with a flat foot strike. And that's again another thing that I had to take a little bit of time to get used to. How should I be running in this shoe? Because a lot of these other marathon racers, which we've been running in here in this channel, put you up on your toes a little bit. The Alpha Fly does that. The Cielo does that. Even the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, which is not a racer but a training shoe, and I've spent a lot of time in that, does that. The Boston 12 does that as well. And this has a much flatter profile on the bottom here. There's not much of a rocker here in the back, and we do get a little bit of a toe spring up here, but it doesn't feel as rockered, and especially at those slower paces for me, I wasn't getting that speed assistance.
Now, when I dropped it into that 6 flat and sub 6 minute pace, that's when the shoe really started humming for me. That's probably a 10K pace for me right now, maybe even a half marathon pace. And when I put a lot of force into the shoe, it responded. And so that's what they're trying to do with the shoe. It seems like they're trying to position it more as that top tier elite marathon racing shoe, because V3 didn't really fulfill the mission of that. And with so many fast competitive options on the market, they need to have something a little bit more aggressive to fill that brief. And so this is not going to feel aggressive in the same way as the Alpha Fly or the Endorphin Elite or the Cielo. It's going to feel a little bit more like a normal training shoe until you start pushing the pace. And so with this firmer foam here, I actually have a hunch that this is going to be a pretty durable shoe, because unlike the Vaporfly with the super soft ZoomX, unlike what I'm anticipating we're going to get out of that Hoka Cielo, this has a ton of rubber on the back, by the way, but also with this firmer feel, it should stand up better to some longer miles. Now, another thing that we're getting here that we're not going to get out of a lot of those more aggressively rockered shoe is a ton of stability. And so I don't have my other shoes with me out here. I'll go back into the office and try to do a comparison side to side so you can see, but the width on these, it just feels a lot wider than the Vaporfly and the Alpha Fly. I think it might even be wider than the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3.
Scratch, freeze frame. Yeah, I actually think these are pretty comparable. Pro 3 might be a little wider in the heel area here. I'm not going to crank out the ruler right now, but on feel out there on the ride, they feel very similar.
I think it's probably about comparable to the Hoka, but it feels much more stable than the Hoka because, again, the foam in here is firmer. And so with that, though, there is a trade-off, and you guys hear me talk about trade-offs all the time, but with more stability, oftentimes that means less fun. So you can have stability or you can have fun most of the time, other than the Saucony Tempest. I've heard that shoe has both. But with this thing, it doesn't feel like the most fun shoe at everyday running paces. This is not a squishy, fun-feeling foam like what you guys loved about that Saucony Endorphin Speed 2. That's not what you're going to be getting out of here. But that being said, I felt extremely planted. I could not say the same thing about the Hoka. I could not say the same thing even about the Boston 12, which is a little bit of a firmer training shoe. But the lockdown on this combined with that wider platform was fantastic. So if you have any issues with stability, I think after the first run here, and of course we have to do a longer run to fully verify this, but I think this might be one of the best, if not the best options when it comes to stable shoes. And that's not coming at the expense of speed. It's just going to be coming at the expense of fun a little bit, because you're not going to get that soft, squishy bounce that we love so much from PEBA. And this is probably the firmest PEBA I've tried. You can see here as I'm pushing my finger in, I am not getting a ton of give in return. It is a really rigid compound, which I don't mind. And the thing is, New Balance has a ton of soft options in their lineup. They have that fresh foam in the 1080. They're also coming out with the Balos this year, which is going to be a PEBA EVA blend. And they have the SC Trainer V2 right now, which is a very soft option. So with this, they're positioning it as their firmer option in the lineup for the fastest runners. So it seems like, unlike V3, this isn't going to be the best option for 4-hour marathoners. I think it might be they want to position the SC Trainer as that 3+ hour marathon shoe, and then this for that sub 3 range. But I do have to say, at the end of this run, so as I was doing those cool down miles, the shoe still felt pretty good, and it felt as I was getting more time in the shoe, it warmed up a little bit and the foam started to work a little bit better and maybe soften up just a touch. So you guys know me, I have no issues with a firm shoe, and I actually really like a firm shoe. So this is one that I'm probably going to end up putting a ton of miles in over the next few months so that we can see how the durability does, but also because I think this firm foam will stand up really nicely to repeated usage within a high mileage week. Now, in terms of the fit, it is a pretty accommodating toe box still, and I know New Balance does not like to have their racing shoes called accommodated. I read an interview about the V3, and the V3 of this won the most accommodating marathon racing shoe award, and the product designer said that is not an award we want to win. So I hope they don't win that award for this one, but it still is an accommodating fit. It's a decently wide toe box, much better than what we see in the Saucony, pretty comparable to what we see in the Hoka. I will say, do not go down a size. This is a 10. I'm actually might see if I can exchange this for a 10.5, or if they can send me a 10.5, because this was not enough room in the left foot for me. The upper was pretty comfortable too. Now today it was, I don't know, 65 degrees. You saw me running in a t-shirt and shorts, so absolutely beautiful weather. So I can't really comment on the breathability of it, but most of these uppers these days, most of these race day uppers these brands are putting on their shoes are really good. They're all pretty comparable, and this felt like it did a good job holding my foot onto the shoe, and I wasn't wiggling around at all in there, so that is nice to know. And then if we look around the back here, this is a much more substantial back back around here than we're gonna get in a lot of racing shoes. This might be one of the best racing shoe backs. We don't always get this rigid heel collar, and this really looks like a training shoe upper here. So that's probably where a little bit of the additional weight is coming from on this shoe. It's the upper, and then again, it's gonna be the wider platform with more rubber. I tend not to mind a heavier shoe, especially if you are getting more in return. If you're getting a heavier shoe because the foam itself is heavy, that's probably not the best thing. But with this, it's heavier because the foam is wider. It still is 100% PEBA, so you're gonna get the same energy return properties as pretty much all of the other PEBA on the market. Don't let them tell you anything differently. And of course, there's differences with the geometry of the plate and how that's angled, and that will factor into the efficiency, but those things don't matter for most of us at the paces we're running. But this did not feel like a heavy shoe, and something like the Hoka Cielo, that felt a little bit more like a heavy shoe compared to the Vaporfly. This doesn't feel heavier. It definitely feels like a more robust shoe, like it can stand up to a little bit more usage, which is a good thing if you plan to use your shoe during training. So of course, we're gonna have to get some more miles in this thing, but initial thoughts are it's a really nice, fast and firm ride. If you like shoes like the Brooks Hyperion Max, the Puma Velocity Nitro 3, I think this will be a good marathon racer for you. If you're coming from shoes like the New Balance 1080, the SC Trainer V2, or the Nike Invincible, that softer category of shoes, the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3, even the previous version of this is probably not going to be what you want in a racer. There are much better soft, approachable racers, and even in New Balance's own lineup, that's what they're doing with the SC Trainer V2, and probably with the SC Trainer V3. I'm assuming with that EVA PEBA blend, it's going to be a little bit on the softer side. And when I did press it in down at TRE, it did feel a whole lot softer than what we're getting here. So after this first run, I want to test this at top end speed, put it against the Alphafly and maybe the Takumi Sen for a 5K or 10K pace workout, because I think at the paces that I'm running, that's where this is going to feel best for me. Then I also want to do a steady long run, so maybe 20-22 miles at around that 6:57 minute per mile pace, where I'm not quite in marathon zone yet and also not recovery zone, and see how it feels, just the foam over the course of that run, if it softens up more and feels like it's giving me anything else in return. All right guys, let me know all your questions about the SC Elite V4, and as always, I will be back tomorrow with another video.